Hey everyone, and welcome to another session on automations inside of our favorite project management tools. Today we are looking at working with webhooks. Webhooks are the backbone for so many online platforms, and we are going to explore what you can do with webhooks inside of teamwork.com. Now, last time we were actually testing on YouTube Live. I didn't realize it was only a one-way communication, so this time we are on Zoom. If you have questions, feel free to ask them out loud, or if you're not comfortable talking or can't talk right now, put them in the meeting chat, and I will do my best to make sure that this is really an interactive session, because the content I have scheduled for us is not enough to last for 45 minutes. So welcome everybody. We're going to dive right into it. So the first thing we'll talk about is me. It's my favorite topic, some of you would say. Who am I? I am a Teamwork accredited partner, much like Susan is with us here. I've been working as a partner with Teamwork for over 17 years now. And where my specialty lies in my team is, yes, we do all the standard implementations and integrations, but why you're here today is because we are technical. We do custom automations, we do custom workflows inside and outside of Teamwork to really leverage it as the central digital hub within your entire system. That's it about me. So now let's get talking about what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to talk about some of the challenges people have with any online software. We're going to do a quick recap, just a bit of the concepts we've talked about last time. We're going to talk about why everything is webhooks. And then we're going to really actually get into it today. I want to show you hands-on like we did last time, but this time we can talk, which is great, except for Damaris. Damaris, I see your message. Feel free to chat. Wonderful. I appreciate that. Okay, awesome. So you guys have probably all faced this within whatever platform you're in. There's no magic tool. So often we have people come to us and they're like, hey, is there a tool that does everything in my business specifically in one tool? I know it seems silly when I word it that way, but often that's what clients are looking for. And we've lost clients from Teamwork, ClickUp, Asana, Monday. People will choose different platforms because they're so busy looking at features that they're not actually thinking about what the proper solutions are to their workflow gaps. How are their people working? What's missing? What are the opportunities to make things better? They often get fixated on a single feature and say, well, that tool doesn't have that, so that tool doesn't work for me. And what we're learning about in this series is how to say, actually, we can make that tool do that thing for you if it has a webhook. So let's talk about what we covered a bit last time. We talked about the general logic last time of things like when this, do that. So all of the native automations in Teamwork, all of the way webhooks work is all the same. When this thing happens, do something. So when one of these things happens, or compound conditions is what these are called, compound statements, is when this happens and this happens, then do this thing and this thing and this thing. So you can build already visually in many of these tools, especially Teamwork, really complex automations. And some of those automations already work outside of Teamwork itself with Slack messages, Teamwork chat, Teams, all of that. And there's that magic send HTTP request, which is actually a webhook. So you're already prepared if you have played around to understand how webhooks work. So that's what we talked about last time. Now, today what I want to talk about is how when you are using any web app, whether it's Teamwork, ClickUp, Microsoft 365, doesn't have to even just be PM tools, even your Gmail or your Outlook Online, like any of these tools all work the same. You have a front-end interface and you click on something. And when you click on something, if you're a little technical, you can open up your dev console and take a look. It's actually calling the API, which is a webhook, to get you the information you have specified from that button. So even here, when I'm in Teamwork and I went into this project, or even clicking projects, what it actually says to do is go out to the API, when I clicked this button and retrieve all the projects for this particular user's account. And then it lists all of those projects and their categories and everything else that we have fed into it for data. So the data is what matters the most. We know that as professionals working with these tools, but it's more important even with your automations, because automations can only get what data you provided. Okay, that's really important to understand as we go forward. But it's all the same thing. The only difference is this is a much prettier interface, whereas automations tend to just work behind the scenes. Any questions so far about anything I've talked about? I know I might be going a bit fast and I don't want to do that, but is everyone keeping up okay so far? Excellent. Okay, so let's take a look at one. This is fun. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys a tool called N8N. There's many tools out there, Make, Zapier, all kinds of them. And what we're going to look at first is a basic webhook. So all I've done here is I have created a listener that is going to listen for this to happen. So I'm just going to say execute that. So now what it's waiting for is for a new task from Teamwork. So if I go in here and go into our test project, I will just duplicate this because that's the same as creating a new task. It has now duplicated that task, which has a title, it has a tag. It doesn't have dates. I probably should have put dates on it. So you know what? We will do that again. Let me just stop that. Oh, and why did that not actually run anyway? Okay, that's fine. So we'll go in here. We'll just create one. We'll call it test task. We're going to give it some dates of today and tomorrow. We will assign it to me. We will give it a description. Here is my description. We will give it a time estimate of 2 hours. Awesome. We will give it a tag, and that should be really all we need to do. And we hit save. Now, if that didn't work, let's find out if it did. There's things we can check. So it's still waiting for the trigger event. So why did that not trigger? So I created a new task, but it did not trigger. So the first thing we need to do is go and see if our webhook is configured. Sometimes Teamwork turns these things off. So we're going to go to our settings, and yes, task created is paused. So let me reactivate that. I'll come back to that screen after, don't worry. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to try this again. Make sure it's listening. It is. I'm going to duplicate this task, which creates a new task. So exact same thing, except this time it fired because we created a new task. So when we created the new task, it got caught by this workflow. And if we open up this workflow, I'll go through all of this with you later, but all it's done is basically captured all that information in something called JSON. This is what most platforms like to use. What I like about this platform is you can just change it to a table view, which is nice. So you can see I'm the one that created the event. Here's my first name, here's my last name, my avatar, gives you the project ID, gives you start dates, end dates, gives you the company ID, the task ID, names, descriptions, statuses, priorities if I put a priority in there, the task list it belongs to, like everything you could want to know about this task was captured that easily just from a webhook. So that's kind of cool. So how did we actually do that? So let's take a look. In your settings area, if you're an admin, you will see underneath the more a section called webhooks. And the first thing to note is to actually just say, is the webhook enabled? If it is, you then now want to register events. Now, what is an event? Well, an event is kind of like what we were talking about. Like when I clicked on the projects button and it listed all the projects, there is something called an event listener. It's something that's listening for certain types of events to occur. In the case of projects, when I roll over it, the web interface says add this little bit of change to it so I know which one I'm on. But when I click it, that on event listener for click says, okay, when someone clicks, goes out and get all the projects for this user. So that's pretty cool. So we're just going to say add webhook, and you're going to see there is a ton of direct API things you can call through the webhook right from here. So all I did was hit the task one and said task created. And when you say task created, all it's going to ask you for is an endpoint URL. And an endpoint is simply, where do you want me to send the information for? Oh, I actually said task list created. Where do you want me to send the information for task created? So all the info I can get from that task, where do you want me to send it to? And in your automation tool, anytime you create a webhook, the very first thing it gives you is a URL that you would add to the webhook. So it's creating the connection. You are saying when this event happens, task created, send the data to this webhook here, to this webhook. It has its own unique location on the internet. And that's exactly what happened. And so then we just listed all of the data. Now, once you have that information, you can do any number of wonderful things with it. But before we get into that, I just want to pause because, again, this might be brand new for some people understanding webhooks and how they work and what their purpose is. So please let me take a breath. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I want this to be interactive. All right, Susan, go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay, my question is the place that it lands. Can you take
Yes,
me back to that screen?
I
And
can.
did you say that this tool that you're in, that is a tool like Make and Zapier?
Yeah, totally. So if we were to
Okay,
do the same thing inside of Make, the
Make it would
process is
just
the same.
you would just
So
send it
that
there instead.
Yeah, every time
Okay,
you add a webhook listener, basically you're just creating a new event, like a new location. So if I went here even and said webhook, and I want a custom webhook, you'll notice I can choose the hook or add a hook if I want a new one. So if I add a new one, I'm going to give it a name. We can call it, we'll call it Teamwork Test Hook, like
okay,
so. And then I'm just going to say save that hook, and it gives you its own unique URL, right? So it's the
got
same
it.
thing. So I would copy that address because this is what I want to be listening. I would go back over here. And in this case, I would say, okay, you know what? When I update a notebook, right? Let's do that one. When I
Sure.
update a notebook, I want it to go to that URL,
Okay,
and I can
wonderful.
add the webhook. And so then anytime a notebook gets updated in Teamwork, it's going to go to this webhook here,
Got it.
right? That's how you create the connections. I just prefer this tool. It's I find it visually a little bit easier to explain things, but yeah, it works in any of these things, including Zapier as well. Okay,
Thank you.
great question. No, you're welcome. Okay, so pretty cool. So what kind of things can you do? Well, let's look at another example here. So this one is called a simple project status report. So there's not a lot going on there, right? It's just, okay, we've got a teamwork project gets updated, and you'll notice we already have that project updated is one of the things we're listening for. And when that project gets updated, it's going to a different URL. You can see this one says BAEDA. This one is 4E2A. Different URLs. Every webhook is unique. And so we're going to send it there. And once we get the data of the project, we get the project details, we grab the time logs, we get the tasks, we do a little cool proprietary magic here. Now, you could do this with an AI if you wanted to. You could throw an AI in there and say, analyze this and give me some results. We actually have some of our own code in there, which I'll show you. I have no problem showing you. It's not a lot of code. It's just the kind of stuff we like to work on, how we approach things. And then we say, format that, organize that, spit it out as a report. So let's try that. I'm going to execute the workflow. So it's waiting for me to call the test URL. So I'll go back in here. I'll go to our projects. We'll go actually, we don't even have to go anywhere. We can go right here, and I'm going to change the due date on the project. I will make it due on Friday. And I'll say set project states. Oh, set date. Oh, that's fine. It's conflicting. I'll just say don't warn me about that. It's now good. That technically counts as a project update. So if I go back here, you'll see that this already ran. That's how fast automations can be. So it already got all the data, grabbed the time logs, got the task, processed the report, and emailed it to me. So now when I go into my email, if I refresh my how-to project email, we have a project alert. Teamwork's automations training, we have 9 overdue tasks. So at a very basic level, it's got a project status update, updated by me. Here's when it was last updated. Here's the key metrics: 5 hours of time logged, 0 to 15 tasks completed, 9 overdue tasks, and a link to go back and see it in Teamwork. Obviously, this is just for example purposes because you can get much more complex with these kind of things. But with very little effort, we set up a webhook. That's what we did. We set up a webhook for when a project gets updated, and then we just created an automation workflow. We all know that term workflow, the different stages of how a task goes. It's the same thing with an automation workflow, right? And there's different ways you can make these things happen. You can have these things happen automatically. It doesn't have to be through a webhook. You can just grab the project details other ways, but today we're actually looking at project updated. So let's go through this really quick. I just want to show you what's happening. So we get the project, and then I'm just, again, looking at variables. It's like you've passed me in information. That's what's happening over here on the left. You've passed me in some information from the webhook, like we got the data for the project. So from there, I just take the project ID and call another URL, like another part of the API, and that will return everything to do with the project. So that's cool. Once I have everything to do with the project, I can now then use the information from the project details to grab all of the time entries from that project. And again, all I had to configure in this case was one variable from what we got. So I'm not doing anything complex here. It looks complex till you get used to it. I got all the time logs, and then I also said, give me all the tasks. So again, I'm just calling a different part of the Teamwork API. This is the exact same thing, get tasks. This is the same thing that happens when you go into a project and click on list, and it lists you all the different tasks in a project. And then, like I said, from here, we're just declaring a few variables. So project details, time logs, tasks, that kind of stuff. And then we're just organizing it basically into an email so it looks pretty. And here's the data that comes out. It says project name, Teamwork Automations Training, project ID, total hours, completion rates, completed tasks, total tasks, overdue count, all of that. And then finally, we're just configuring an email. So here's the subject, project alert, and whatever the name of that project is. And then the HTML, the message, I can open this up a bit. It's just an HTML email template that passes through the variables for what we want to send in this report. I know that seems like a lot, but this is actually like being able to do any of this. You can do all of this. That's the fun part. Okay, so this is the basis of what a webhook is. It's how you pass data out of one platform into another. Okay. All right, let me get back over here. We talked about creating the webhook, and we did talk about this really. Now, at the beginning, I said everything is webhooks. It's really not. But if you think this way, everything all follow that when this, then that pattern that we saw with automations last week, and we even recapped earlier today. So a webhook is the external system pushes data to you, whereas an API call is you are pulling data from the system you want. And then an event handler, like we talked about with the button, it's waiting for you to interact with it. It's waiting for you to do something. So they all follow the same pattern. When this happens, do this thing. And that's the key to building any types of automations. In fact, many of the Teamwork integrations that exist, they all follow this. They've just put it in a pretty wrapper for us so that we can fill in the variables and go from there. Even Teamwork itself, if you think about it, when I go to log into Teamwork, I'm presented with a screen that asks me for username and password. And when I click the button to log in, that's an event handler that then goes and looks to find my variables of who I am and what organization I belong to and what projects I have and everything else, all my preferences for Teamwork, and it loads up the Teamwork interface. It's the exact same interface that you have, that I have, that someone else has, but it has my data in it. Webhooks are no different. We are saying, give me my data because I want to take it and do something with it that teamwork doesn't do. That's really what we're saying. That's why we use webhooks. This platform that I'm on, Teamwork, Monday, Asana, whatever it is, it doesn't do what I want it to do out of the box. So I need to take the pieces of the data I need so I can make it do what I want it to do. That's not a deficiency on the product. And we talked about that. There's no magic tool. And we've seen with Teamwork, we've seen with ClickUp and many other big tools, even like Microsoft Suite, the more you try to be everything, the less you become good at anything. So where we can position ourselves, and I believe it's the way forward, especially with AI and everything else. I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler here. I didn't write any of this code. None of this code came from me. I just told the AI what I wanted to do. It spit out the code, and on the first try, when I pasted it, it worked, right? Because this is all just JSON. So Susan, you're asking why I use this over Make earlier, for example. From here, when I say download, I can actually download this, and the entire workflow downloads as a JSON file. And the AI, I can just say, go read this file, and it reads it and goes, ah, I see exactly what you want to do. Let me help you out. Fantastic. It's so easy to use that way. Okay. So the positioning is, hey, yeah, teamwork in this example can do most of that, and we can actually extend it to do that other thing you want it to do. The only qualifiers ever is you need to be able to know what is inside of the Teamwork API. There's 3 different references. There's a version 3, and you just need to know, like if someone's like, oh, can I get time tracking data out? Then you can just say, okay, yeah, it looks like you can. I can get timer by IDs. I can get so much information. And I'll tell you this, Teamwork has the most comprehensive one out of all of the different platforms that we're familiar with. Okay. Before I get into the next part, because really we're almost done. We're only 20 minutes in. So I really wanted you guys just to see this, maybe even try this, and we could play a little bit together. But do you have any questions before we go forward with anything? It's a lot, right? I get it. It's been 20 minutes, but it's been an intense 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So, like we had last time, there's really 3 flavors to this stuff. There's automations, which is in this case, teamwork helping itself. So it's something inside of the platform. There's integrations, which is technically what we're doing. We're creating these assistive workflows that integrate through a tool like N8N or Make or what have you. And then AI is just teamwork getting smarter. But at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. It's less manual work for you. So here, let's try this. Here's a couple of things I want to test out. First, let's I want to make more use of this channel. This where was it? Teamwork Automations channel. So if you haven't joined the Teamwork Automations channel in our Teamwork user group, please do. And feel free to post either, like an if only moment, like I wish it did this, or your biggest aha moment, like what did you actually get out of what we're talking about so far? And if you can, either in our chat again or with your voice, why don't we play with building something together right now? Why don't we like try to build something simple and something that's bothering you? Go ahead, Susan.
I got a good one.
Okay.
Let's say I've just updated one of my project templates for my clients.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I know I also have to go add that task into every existing project that's open.
Okay.
Can we make it do it?
So you've updated a project template with a new
Updated it? Yeah.
task
We have a
and you
new
want to,
we have a new process, right? We have a new
yeah,
task that's going to go into every project, but we have 25, 30, let's say 100 open
right.
projects.
Yeah. You don't
How
want
can
to
we
copy
get
and paste that to
don't want to
every single
copy and paste
project.
in every
Yeah.
single one. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to look up in the Teamwork API what we can do with templates. Okay, so we got task templates, create a template, get a project template. Okay, so we can get a project template, which is good. Update a specific project template. Okay, cool. So this is actually more complex than you think, and I'll tell you why. We'll walk through the logic first. It's not something I think I could build in the next 15 minutes, because what we have to do is when it gets updated, we have to figure out how are we determining something was updated, right?
So
The way it,
you just said something really interesting that I think everybody
okay,
should pay attention to. I can't do it in the next 15 minutes, which totally makes sense because it's more complex. So,
right.
and this would be a one-off thing, right? We're doing it one
Yeah.
time. So we always have to be weighing whether or not it makes sense to build the automation or just do the task, right?
So fair enough. Let's talk about that for a moment. So when do we use automations? So something we started off with was automations, twofolds. I like what you're doing. You're automating something that might take too long to do manually. So I just want to automate it as a one-off. That's a good use case if it makes sense to do. You're right. The main reason we use automations is for repeating, recurring types of activities. So in this case, what I was doing earlier is, let's say every week I want to have a custom status report and have that sent to me automatically. I don't want to have to go do that manually, and the teamwork report just, I can't customize it the way I want, or I don't want to upgrade to the scale plan on this client, that kind of thing. So it's something that's going to happen repeatedly, and I want to automate that. That's the main use case for a lot of these things.
Yep, that
In
makes
your
sense.
use case, I actually do stuff like that. So I'll show you another one, and then we'll come back to yours. Because I'm not going to say no, I just want to work you through the logic. It might only take 15 minutes. Okay, so I had a client. This one's wild. So this is a little bit bigger than what we were just looking at, right? But I had a client that's got, I think, 4,510 people in the people section of her teamwork. So when you go here, she has way too many people in this list. I've got 18 in my sandbox. She has 4,510 in her teamwork account. And so some of them are contacts, some of them are collaborators. She deals with a lot of, contractors and stuff, but she's never updated that ever. And she thought, hey, what if I could take all of that information and get it updated through like those email nurturing platforms like Apollo or Clay or any of those things? And is there a way for me to update it in Teamwork so that I have the current email addresses of everybody that is in here? Because this is a great source potentially for nurturing new work. That's what she asked. And I was like, what an interesting thing. So I actually played with it and figured out we can. So what I've done, let me just walk through this really quickly. Configuration is just their information, like their API keys and stuff. So I like to make this repeatable. I've already sold it to a few other customers. And then we have a Google Sheet in this case because she also didn't want it to just automatically do it. She wanted to see it first. So all of this stuff, I exported again using an automation. Everything from her teamwork people, that was easy. I just said, give me all the people and put it into a Google Sheet. That was nothing. That took like 2 minutes. So now what I do is I say, okay, let's see. We're only going to process in batches. So in this case, we're processing in batches. I think it's in the configuration. We're doing 20 people at a time. Okay. And the reason we only do 20 people at a time is because some of these external services, if you hit them too much, they're like, whoa, you're overloading our system, slow down. So we'll do 20 at a time. And then we check where we were at and whatever. We go and get that person from our list. Or those 20 people. We split them into an array. We do whatever. But here's the important part here is we go to one of those third-party enrichment services and we just pass through the person. We just pass them through. And then this third party enrichment service says, oh, yeah, I found that person. Okay, cool. So then we did a little more based on feedback from the client to get their current organization as well as their current email. Is there a domain for that current organization? If not, there's another tool that you can use and it'll grab all of that information. And then whether it succeeds or fails, whether it finds the right email or not, we merge it all back together. And here's the fun part. We add it to the sheet and we check if debug is true. Now, what is debug is true? This is the fun part. Remember I told you she wanted to review it all first? So way back in our configuration, we say debug is equal to true. And back here, it gets checked. So if debug is equal to true, it just ends. There's nothing here. It just ends. But if debug is equal to false, that means she is happy with all the work that's been done. So we're going to update the person in teamwork. We're going to actually put notes in the personal notes of the people record. So when I go into a person, for example, and I want to edit her, you have this notes section. So we automatically populated the notes section with whatever the changes were. And then we sent an email to the owner of this site to let them know this is a full report, not just one at a time. But we said, here's the 20 people we just did. Here's the changes we made. It's all been put in your teamwork for you. So then we just let that run, Susan, because trying to figure that out manually for 4,500 users made no sense. This took me about 6 hours to build. To do it manually probably would have taken me about 6 days. So
Well,
even though it was a one-off task, there was an economy there.
but but is it one off? This is something that might need to be run again one day in this case.
Right. It might.
Yeah.
I actually went and ran it against my own organization
Yeah.
after. Right. And it gave me some good follow-ups. It gave me some good, like, dead prospects that I'm now nurturing again. And that's why, again, when you build things in a way where you're thinking about API keys and debug and that kind of thing, you just have to change those variables. And when you rerun it, now it's running for Beyond the Chaos. Now it's running for How To Project. And like I said, I've sold this to 3 other clients already. So that 6 hours of work has more than paid for itself because nobody likes doing that kind of data cleanup. Nobody,
No.
right? But
Yep.
back to your example, back to what we were just talking about. So we have to look at the idea. The idea is, where are you? Here we go. When we update a specific project template, how do we do that? And the way it works with a notebook updated, it's because notebooks can compare old versions versus new versions. It's much easier to tell when a notebook's been updated. So what we would have to look at here is we would have to say, go by date and see what the last activity was, is probably how I would handle this. I would say, get me the last activity or get me the last 3 activities. It depends how automated you want it to be. So I would say, get me the last activity. And if the last activity was task created, then I would say, okay, you would have to, if we know exactly what we're expecting in this case, in your case, you know exactly what you're expecting, then I could actually say, take that task and make a loop. So I would say get every single project that is active. So always filter by active. I made that mistake once. I would say get every active project on this teamwork instance and now create a loop and just copy that task again and again and again and again. And what a loop looks like, I should have one here. What a loop looks like, which is cool, is when you get into the loop, it will keep looping and keep looping and keep looping and keep looping till it gets through all of your data. Oh, sorry, this way. Keep looping, keep looping, keep looping, keep looping. Then when it's done, it goes through a different process. So there's a lot of smart logic built into these things. So in your case, what you want to do is you want to keep looping through every project until that task has been added. And then I always like to send a Slack message or an email report to Susan to say, hey, we finished and here's everything that was added. And you can even have it set up with logic too, that if for some reason it failed, capture that, fail silently, just capture that. So you would see a bunch of check marks down your list and then one X or two X's where it actually didn't. So now instead of having to add it manually to 100 projects, it failed on 2 for whatever reason. We don't need to get too depth with our error handling yet, but it's much easier to go in and copy it to 2 than it is to 100. So yeah, given that logic, it would probably take me about half an hour to build that out. If that
Super
logic
cool.
I did make sense. Yeah, it is super cool. Like they're really efficient. Now, okay, we still got time. There's something else I want to show you guys. As I always do, we always go into the mind-blowing stuff next, right? The things that are really like what's possible. It was going to be AI agents. I'm going to save that for next time. What I'm going to do instead is show you this. So I use Claude, for example. Okay. And there's a whole other thing called MCP. Now, remember here, we were talking about how automations, I'm basically building out this workflow to repeat itself and keep doing what it needs to do whenever an event happens or on a certain schedule. That's really cool. But I have to learn some of these things, like which nodes am I using when, and how do I make it loop? And there's a learning curve. It's a great skill to have. But MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, is this new standard for AIs that basically says, here is my entire API that I'm going to open up to you. And all you have to do is tell me what you want, and the AI will figure out the code. So I have the Teamwork MCP configured. And once you have, like I have a lot of things configured, but when you go into one, you can actually see all the different parts they've added already. So it's not the complete API yet, it's a whole bunch of stuff, but it's not complete yet. But you remember that report I just ran with that automation earlier? Once you have the MCP set up, and again, Susan, this is something that you could do for yours, is you could say, get this task by this name from this project template, tell me the name of the task. And it would be like, okay, here's I got it, I see it, I see the details. Then you could say, great, copy it to every active project in this instance. And it'd be like, okay, and it'll just do it. So for example, I can say, I'm just going to be very specific so it doesn't do anything wonky. So I'm going to say using Teamwork MCP. You don't always have to specify it, but it never hurts. Using Teamwork MCP, generate a high level risk report for the entire portfolio. Focus on late tasks, late milestones, missing task properties, and do a general assessment. That's it. That's all I got to say to the AI. And now what this AI is going to do on its own is all that cool stuff I just showed you. It's creating its own connections in real time. Ignore this part. This is just another thing saying, yeah, I remember you, Marcus. You're fantastic, and I know what you do for a living. Okay. So what you can see it's doing, I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in a bit, is it's generating a comprehensive portfolio risk report using the Teamwork MCP. So it went and got all of my projects. Now it went and got all of my milestones. Now from each of those projects, it's going through and listing all the tasks. Oh, but wait, there's even more tasks. So it did all of the tasks, and now it's creating that portfolio risk assessment. So there's significant systematic risks that require immediate attention. Multiple projects are severely overdue with inadequate task management practices across the board. We've got critical risks, 7 out of 11 late milestones. These are all inside of the what do you call it, sandbox. So it's got all of these different things, and it's showing you that these projects are all overdue, that some of these things are having big business impact, the overdue risks to tasks, and all of this was done without me coding anything. And look at this. It even gives you immediate action required. Do some triage. Start to get ahead of things here. Divides it into weeks, short term, medium term, and all of that was done without any coding whatsoever. So leveraging these new technologies, the automations, the AIs, all of this stuff is kind of cool, and you can do a lot of cool one-off kind of things. This is all one-off, the MCP stuff, Susan. So I'm going to recommend play around inside one of these types of platforms. They all have free trials. The other reason I like N8N as well, Susan, is you can self-host it. So this cost me $3 a month to self-host, and I prefer that over paying, the other fees. So you can do all kinds of amazing things. And then if you really want, you can reach out to me through the Teamwork user group, and I can help you get this Teamwork MCP set up. And it doesn't just have to be for Claude. It can be in your Chat GPT or Gemini or any of the other AIs that you use, as long as they support MCP, because it's not an official standard yet, but it's getting there. So yeah, lots of amazing things that you can do, but I really wanted to make sure that you guys had an opportunity to at least see how even basic webhooks worked today. Is there any other questions? Is it like brain melting time today? Amy, you good?
Yeah, I think so.
That's okay. So there's no homework or anything, but I encourage you. Like the whole idea of these sessions, why I'm doing these sessions is twofold. One is I want to elevate what we're all doing with teamwork, because if we start doing more cool things, then it forces teamwork to do more cool things, right? Natively in the
Yeah.
platform. A lot of this AI stuff that they're doing is because I've been showing them a lot of the AI stuff I've been doing, and I've been making teamwork work better than they have it working. And they're like, okay, we need to up our game. So if we can do that collectively together and up our game, we are bringing more value as partners, as users, just as evangelists. That's one part. The other part is I'm practicing my style, because what I want to do is open up one of those schools like SKOOL, and I want to start teaching people how to do this, and doing more of these types of workshops and office hours types of things, so that when Susan says, "Hey, I couldn't figure out how to do that one-off to update, the task across every project. Do you have time to work on it with me?" Yeah, I do. It's office hours. Come on in. Let's build it in real time. That kind of thing. So please, if you even if you can do this part where you create the webhook, copy the link, go back to your teamwork. Let's get rid of all of this. Go back to your teamwork into settings, webhooks, and can add that to any type of event you want, right? Like here's another brilliant example that I think Susan would appreciate, because her and I talk about these kind of things often. Budget integrations into other platforms. I write so many automations to take budget data and actually put it into other accounting platforms properly using webhooks. So anytime someone updates a budget, or even when they create the budget, first I want to make sure that that's created in the appropriate accounting platform and everything's connecting right. And then I go ahead and update it every time someone updates it here. So there's a ton of stuff you can play with here. So just pick one. Pick one that's pretty easy. Even risks are pretty easy, because nobody does anything with risks. And the risk register, if you were at the last roadmap, Amy, or anyone else on the call, Teamwork talked about how they're going to be updating the risk register. Fantastic. The risk register is my favorite thing in any project management platform that gets really underutilized. And so I've created a whole series of automation workflows to give really robust risk automation analysis, and it's proactive. So it helps me manage my clients and manage my own team, because it's proactively doing similar to what I just showed you inside of that teamwork MCP, where it's evaluating, and we're telling it what to evaluate for on a much more detailed scale. And then it rates where we're at. It rates how we can improve. It tells us what those improvements are, how long they should take. And then sometimes I can even say, okay, can you just go and do that work, please? And depending on what it is, if it's connected right, it can actually do some of that work for us. So this is really good stuff to learn. And it all starts with understanding how to create a webhook. So again, I really encourage everybody, if you've never used a webhook in Teamwork, it's the easiest one to set up with. And reach out to me on the Teamwork user group, and I will help you. I will make the time to help you, because this is really our basis for future learnings. Okay? Awesome. Well, if there are no